The AOKZOE range of handheld gaming PCs are perhaps not quite as popular as GPD or AYANEO, but their lower priced range of handhelds still pack quite a punch. There's no baby sleeping position grips, fingerprint sensors and other stuff you will probably roll your eyes at. So let's see what the AOKZOE A1 Pro can do. As always, we start with the unboxing. Up first we have the AOKZOE A1 Pro itself, which we will take a closer look at shortly. Next are some instructions in Chinese and English. Inside the box is a 65 watts charger with adapter. We will include the correct adapter for your country. And last but not least is a USB Type-C charge cable. The AOKZOE A1 Pro is available in two colours, Quantum Blue and Lunar White. They measure 11.22 by 4.92 by 0.82 inches and weigh 729 grams. The display is an 8-inch IPS touchscreen with a max resolution of 1920 by 1200. It is a decent quality screen for its size and resolution that has 350 nits brightness. There's no complaints from me. On the front are the usual game controls with D-pad, dual analog sticks and buttons. There are 3 additional buttons, one on the bottom left to show the desktop and 2 on the bottom right to bring up the on-screen keyboard and overlay software. On either side are LED lights which can be configured for different patterns in the overlay software. Along the top we have shoulder and trigger buttons, there is the power button and volume rocker, and in the middle is a 3.5mm headphone jack followed by a USB 4 port and USB 3 port. And on the bottom is a USB 3.2 port and micro SD card slot. The back has a handy kickstand which is useful for whilst on a table or desktop to stand up. The AOKZOE A1 Pro features the now standard AMD Ryzen 7 7840U and integrated 780M graphics. We've seen this in AYANEO 2S and GPD WIN MAX 223 models, so it will be interesting to compare the performance. There's a choice of 32 or 64 gigs of LP DDR5X RAM at 7500 megatransfers a second. There's also up to 2 TB of SSD for your storage. For communications there is Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2 for connecting wireless peripherals to. Powering the handheld is a 65 Wh, 17100 mAh battery. With the included charger you can fully charge it in around 1.5 hours. In our tests running Street Fighter 6 benchmark at 28 watts TDP on the highest settings we get 1 hour 33 minutes. And leaving it idle on the desktop at 28 watts TDP we got an impressive 9 hours 55 minutes. We are comparing the A1 Pro with the AYANEO 2S, Asus ROG Ally and GPD WIN MAX 223. It is worth noting at the time of making this review that none of these handhelds have proper AMD graphics drivers, and we are running what the manufacturers supplied. As a result, these benchmarks are not final and should only be used as a rough comparison until AMD sorts out their delay in releasing drivers. The PC Mark results are a bit all over the place, with just over 1000 between the highest WIN MAX 23 and lowest AOKZOE A1 Pro. The results can vary a bit, but we get decent scores with the RAM and the storage is also fast with over 7 gigs a second read speeds. So make of these scores what you will. Our test results for Time Spy, Night Raid and Fire Strike tests showed the AOKZOE A1 Pro coming in at second place behind the WIN MAX 223. The AYANEO 2S is just behind and the ROG Ally last place. We are now testing both single and multi-cores going forward in our Cinebench benchmarks. All 4 models score very similar on the single core tests. We can see a bit more of a difference on multi-core with the A1 Pro in third place. For the gaming benchmarks we test with the highest resolution the device supports. In this case 1200p across 11, 20 and 28 watts TDP. Then we do 2 further tests at 1200p if needed and 800p at 28 watts TDP for comparison with other devices. As a note, the Ally does run at 1080p and 720p, so keep this lower resolution in mind for the scores as there's a small score advantage here. For Forza Horizon 5 we are running a benchmark on the lowest quality graphic settings. First we have the individual test for the A1 Pro. There are decent scores for 1200p resolution at the different TDP levels. We can see when compared to the other devices, the scores are mixed. The WIN MAX 223 takes first place with the A1 Pro just behind. Then the other devices have mixed results. For Shadow of the Tomb Raider, we are running the benchmark on the lowest quality settings. Here are the individual tests for the A1 Pro. Above 60 frames per second scores for 1200p at 20 watts TDP is pretty good. Compared with the other devices, we can see the WIN MAX has a decent increase in performance. The Ally does well in overall second place, with the A1 Pro and 2S falling behind here. Cyberpunk 2077 can still push devices to its limits, as we can see on the benchmark results. We are testing on the lowest graphics settings and can see that only at 800p we get above 60 frames per second. Compared with the other devices, we again see the pattern of the WIN MAX 2 taking first place, followed by the A1 Pro. We are running Call of Duty on the minimal graphics settings and get some decent frame rates at 800p. When compared with the other models, we can see the WIN MAX 2 again in first, but the A1 Pro drops to third place behind the AYANEO 2S. Our final benchmark is Street Fighter 6. We are running at 1080p on the highest graphics settings. Unsurprisingly, the MAX 223 is first place, the AYANEO 2S in second, and overall I would put the Ally in third place with the A1 Pro last. These benchmark results are not final, as each device has their own different graphics drivers despite having the same processor. Until AMD get a move on and release proper drivers, we can't make a proper comparison. The Cinebench test, for example, shows the CPU performance is essentially identical, so should the GPU performance, yet we see different scores across these benchmark tests. We will come back to these benchmarks once some proper graphics drivers have been released by AMD. The gaming performance is overall much the same as the AYANEO 2S, which we reviewed a few weeks back. Let's take a brief look at some games for the best graphics above 60 frames per second when possible, and also for battery life. For Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, you can run at 800p balanced with FSR and get above 60 FPS, usually in the 70 to 80 area. You can switch off FSR and it will mostly stay above 60. If you want the highest frame rates, drop the graphics to minimal and you will be in the 90 FPS area. For the best battery life, you can set it to 800p minimal graphics and limit the frames to 30. You can lower the TDP to around 15 watts, maybe even a little lower to save some battery life. If you have not played Dave the Diver, then go and check it out. On the face of it, it sounds like a boring game, but there's a good story with plenty of varying action and plot twists to keep you interested. Anyway, you can run this at 1920 by 1200 at around 15 watts TDP, and you should not have any issues. If you wanted to save battery, then you could go down to 800p and lower the TDP to around 10 watts for above 60 FPS. The graphics settings are non-existent, but you could manually limit the game to 30 FPS and lower the TDP some more. For Overwatch 2, without FSR at 1200p ultra graphics, we got above 60 FPS, with occasional dips below. Personally, I would set it to high for a more stable frame rate for busier scenes and still remain well above 60. For battery life, you can set it to 800p low graphics locked to 30 FPS and the TDP to just 8 watts. Or for 60 FPS, set it to 12 watts. For Doom Eternal, I could not get a stable above 60 FPS frame rate on 1200p medium settings. Personally, I would go with 800p and you can crank the graphics up to Ultra Nightmare and stay above 60 FPS. If you want to save battery, you can go down to low graphics at 60 FPS with around 15 watts TDP. We saw from the GPD WIN MAX 223 and AYANEO 2S that emulation performance has increased over the 6800G models. Let's take a look at some of the more demanding emulators. Our go-to compatible games Tekken 6 and Wipeout HD played excellent. You may get occasional frame drop here and there, but nothing that breaks the gameplay. Not every game will work, but generally the games work very well. For the Xbox 360, our go-to game Vanquish works great and we saw very good performance on Project Gotham Racing 2, though there were some dips below 30 FPS now and again. With AOKZOE and DROIX, you will see less time generating shader caches. Compatible games do, however, run very well once the shader caches have been generated. First and third party games are definitely playable. It is a shame that after a month or two we are still waiting for AMD to release some proper drivers for this 7000 series of processors. We definitely know that there is more performance than what we are currently seeing, but until AMD shakes a leg and releases something, we can't tell how much performance increase there will be. We will be revisiting the benchmarks once proper drivers are released, but in the meantime we go with what information we've got. In terms of performance, the AOKZOE A1 Pro is just behind the GPD WIN MAX 223 and around the same performance as the AYANEO 2S. Personally, I enjoyed my time on the A1 Pro. The large 8-inch display compared with the AYANEO 2S 7-inch actually looks far larger and is really comfortable to look at whilst gaming. The analog sticks admittedly do feel lower quality than the others we have recently tried. I would recommend some stick thumb grips to make them more comfortable, but other than that I have no complaints with the AOKZOE A1 Pro. If fingerprint scanners and baby sleeping position designs don't interest you, and you want a lower price handheld that otherwise performs the same as more expensive ones, then the AOKZOE A1 Pro is an excellent choice. You can learn more about the AOKZOE A1 Pro and order yours today at DROIX.co.uk and DROIX.net for worldwide shipping. Use the discount code AOK50FF on the checkout for a 5% discount. That wraps up our review of the AOKZOE A1 Pro. We hope you have found it useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up to date with our latest videos. See you in the next one.